Chapter 47. A Caterpillar Named John Riley.
John Riley is average in every way but one. When speaking of sports or cars or fishing or business or travel, John Riley is painfully, excruciatingly average. But let the discussion turn to wine, and this caterpillar named John Riley becomes a monarch butterfly before your eyes. The butterfly dance begins as Riley darts from shelf to shelf, snatching bottles and babbling phrases you don't completely understand. His harvest complete, Riley opens each bottle with the delicate precision of a neurosurgeon and slowly pours for each of the people watching. As the wine trickles into the glasses, Riley's eyes sparkle as he describes what you're about to taste. This Ravenswood single vineyard Zinfandel is as reckless and uninhibited as a New Orleans Mardi Gras. Sipping the wine, you taste uninhibited recklessness and, as surely as the sun rises in the east, hear faint echoes of jazz. Now, using his hands, John illustrates how the next wine is dripping with fruit. A rain shower of fruit has been captured in this very bottle. As you taste the wine, the sensation of fruit is like nothing you've ever experienced. John Riley's show is definitely worth the price of admission. My favorite Riley moment came when John gathered a faraway look in his eyes, and the room grew silent. He looked at each of us one at a time, then shook his head slowly from side to side as he stretched his hand gently toward a dusty bottle. I thought of Captain Ahab and Moby Dick as John Riley whispered in a voice thick with reverent awe, "The Philip Togney Cabernet is a dark, brooding monster." It was never my intention to acquire an expensive collection of wine. I just wanted to buy a few bottles for celebratory toasts at the office. My problem is that I met John Riley. But I'm convinced Riley's ability to sell wine has nothing to do with technique. I doubt that he ever attended a sales seminar or even once sat through a training class. Riley's ability to sell wine was born of passion. Raw passion for his product, unconditional humility, and impressive product knowledge are what makes John Riley's wine recommendations irresistible. I've known other men with similar passions, and each of them is wildly successful. When Woody Justice describes a diamond, or Joe Romano speaks of activity-based accounting, or John Silva describes the wonders of the deep, or Tom Pelton talks about Jesus, you don't have a chance. The passion of these men makes their offer irresistible. Their offer to you is this advice: love what you do. The money will follow.
A man in a passion rides a wild horse. Ben Franklin.
Chapter 48. Abraham Lincoln.
The name Abraham Lincoln conjures a lot of powerful images, doesn't it? Ask 10 people what Abe Lincoln means to them, and you're likely to get as many different answers. Freed the slaves, kept the nation together, stuck by Grant when Grant was criticized, taught himself to read and write with a piece of charcoal on the back of a shovel in a log cabin. These are the answers you would expect, things you already knew. But the part of Honest Abe I like best is the part not often mentioned in the history books, something he said. Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left behind by those who hustle. Yes, that's right. Abe was a hustler, a fighter, a scrapper, an opportunist. How else does a dirt-poor farm boy become president of the United States? Abraham Lincoln knew that opportunity is everywhere, and that, quote, all men are created equal. In Lincoln's eyes, the factors that set men apart were attitude and effort. Using these things as a measuring stick, Abe would be the first to agree that some men have made themselves more equal than others. The average salesperson in America will close 2 out of 10 selling opportunities. He'll tell you, selling is a numbers game. If you want me to sell more, bring me more selling opportunities. But an excited, motivated, informed, I love my job salesperson will close half of all the people he sees each day, generating nearly 3 times the dollars produced by the average salesperson. I think Abe would have sold 100% and then bought your store. Do you realize that all the people you will see today are hoping to buy something from you? Please, don't disappoint them.
Chapter 49. Management by consensus.
I have so often been told, it's lonely at the top, that I've concluded it must be loneliness that causes business owners to succumb to the degenerative, debilitating disease known as management by consensus. Symptoms include apathy, confusion, a lack of focus and direction, loss of the ability to wholeheartedly commit, and finally, financial decline. The most devastating effect of management by consensus, however, is analysis paralysis. Since we can't agree on a solution, we'll just study the problem some more. Please don't confuse the popular concept of employee empowerment with management by consensus. Employee empowerment means you give your employees the authority to do their jobs. Management by consensus means you give your employees the authority to do your job. Business owners who are guilty of managing by consensus will usually agree that a camel is a racehorse designed by a committee, because very few of them ever realize that managing by committee is exactly what they're doing. What? I'm not managing by committee. I always make the final decision. I just like to keep my team leaders involved. Abraham Lincoln was a gifted, visionary leader who also liked to keep his team leaders involved. Abe's team leaders were his presidential cabinet, and he always sought their input before making an important decision. On one historic occasion, when a vital measure was in debate, the cabinet members were unanimous in their recommendation against it. Lincoln listened intently, thanked each of them sincerely for their help, and closed by saying, "I, however, vote yes. The measure passes." Lincoln sought the input of his team leaders, not their approval. Leadership is not a matter of genius. It's a matter of courage. I believe those business owners who manage by consensus do so because they want to share the responsibility for failure. Consensus lets them escape the haunting possibility they may someday have to look in the mirror and say, "I alone was wrong."
Chapter 50. Time Poverty.
Time is the currency of our generation. The supply is limited, and everyone needs more of it. Time has become the great equalizer. Each of us is given an identical 24 hours each day, and our success is largely determined by how we use these hours. A recent survey of American business owners revealed near unanimous agreement on the most important factors in considering an employee for advancement. Topping the list was the employee's ability to separate the important from the trivial, to prioritize. Employers don't want their people wasting time on that which is not important. The second most highly valued characteristic was the ability to get things done speedily. In summary, the most highly valued employees are those who can quickly decide what to do and then get it done. It's all about saving time. Never in the history of the world has a nation had so many appliances and services devoted to the saving of time. And never has a nation had so little free time. The growing trend toward time poverty explains why most Americans will decide whether they have any interest in a thing within 7 seconds of their first exposure to it. This incredibly short attention span makes it nothing less than vital that your salespeople train themselves to get to the point. This trend is so self-evident that I fear we often overlook it. Remember the advice of J. Paul Getty when asked how to become rich? Find a need and fill it. The need of today's customer is to save time. How many ways do you offer to save your customers time? Getting people's money is easy once you've persuaded them to give you their time. Win the time of the people, and their money will follow.
Do you love life? Then do not squander time, for that's the stuff life is made of. Benjamin Franklin.
Chapter 51. When an idea's time has come.
Just as Albert has his theory of relativity, I have my own theory of universal knowledge, which states, there is a time for every idea, and when that time comes, the idea springs into the minds of several people simultaneously. It is the first person to take action who gets all the applause. The rest just sit back and cry, "He stole my idea!" Though the world is overflowing with good ideas, people with the courage to act are rare. Swan and Sawyer are brilliant inventors working on opposite sides of the Atlantic. Each of them has plans to produce electric light by running a current through a filament in a vacuum. But it's Thomas Edison who first announces the discovery and receives all the fame and fortune. It doesn't matter that both Swan and Sawyer are further advanced in their experiments, or that it will be more than a year before Edison publicly produces light. Edison has the courage to claim he can do it. Swan and Sawyer do not. Instances of universal knowledge are becoming increasingly commonplace due to the rapid growth of our population and the influence of mass communication. With millions and millions of people receiving identical information and stimuli, it should come as no surprise that many of us have the same ideas at about the same time. Evidence of genius is becoming commonplace, and talent seems to be running rampant in our world. I'll wager that you yourself have enough talent to be world famous for something. The important question is this: are you willing to take action, or will your talent remain unrefined, like gold that stays in the ground? Are we, in fact, created in the image of God? And if so, does this mean that each of us is a walking miniature of Him who spoke worlds into existence and flung the stars from His fingertips? Did He, in fact, prepare you to do great things, then give you the choice as to whether you would do them? Is there a chance that your circumstances and experiences have uniquely and wonderfully prepared you for such a time as this? Do you have the courage to act?